February 1965. Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X sat in a hotel room in Miami for the last time. They had been brothers for 3 years. Malcolm had given Ali his name, his faith, his purpose. But now, the Nation of Islam had ordered Ali to choose Malcolm or the movement. What Ali said in that room would haunt him for 50 years. 9 days later, Malcolm X was assassinated, and Ali never forgave himself for what he didn't say. But this story didn't start in that hotel room. It started 3 years earlier, in Detroit, in a boxing gym, when two men met, neither knowing that this meeting would change both their lives forever. Detroit, Michigan. Cassius Clay was 20 years old and a rising boxing star. He wasn't champion yet, but everyone knew he was different. He was fast, talented, and most importantly, he was loud. He didn't stand quietly in the corner like other boxers. He shouted, "I am the greatest! I am the prettiest!" That evening, after a boxing match in Detroit, someone approached Clay, a tall man, wearing glasses with a serious expression. His name was Malcolm Little, but everyone knew him as Malcolm X. Malcolm was the Nation of Islam's most charismatic speaker. He was Elijah Muhammad's right hand, and his job was to recruit young, talented Black Americans to the movement. Cassius Clay, Malcolm extended his hand. Clay looked at him. This man was different, dressed in a suit, educated, speaking powerfully. Clay didn't know who he was, but instinctively, he was impressed. "Yeah, that's me," Clay said. "Who are you?" "My name is Malcolm X. I want to talk to you about your identity, about your purpose, and about what real freedom means for a black man in this country." That night, Malcolm and Clay talked for hours. Malcolm told him about the Nation of Islam. He talked about black pride. He talked about how white America treated black people. And he said that Cassius Clay's name was a slave owner's name. "That's not your real name," Malcolm said. "Cassius Clay is the name of the man who owned your ancestors as slaves. You're a free man. You need a free name." Clay listened. And that night, something changed. Malcolm X had planted a seed in his mind, and that seed would grow. Over the next 2 years, Malcolm X and Cassius Clay became inseparable. Malcolm became Clay's mental coach. He gave him books. He taught him history. He taught him Islam. And Clay listened. He absorbed every word. For the first time in his life, someone wasn't just teaching him how to throw a punch. Someone was teaching him how to think. In early 1964, Clay was preparing for his championship fight against Sonny Liston. Liston was known as the scariest man in the world, a former convict who'd killed his own guard, a ruthless fighter. Everyone thought Liston would kill Clay. But Malcolm X came to the training camp in Miami. He stayed by Clay's side. He gave him courage. "You're not just a boxer," Malcolm said. "You're a symbol. When you win, you won't just win a belt. You'll give black people hope. You'll show them that a strong, proud, fearless black man can be the greatest in the world." February 25th, 1964, Miami Beach. Cassius Clay, defying everyone's expectations, defeated Sonny Liston. In the 7th round, Liston quit. Clay was champion. Inside the ring, cameras showed Clay shouting, "I am the greatest!" I shook up the world. But what the cameras didn't show was something else. Just outside the ring, Malcolm X stood, smiling, proud. He had helped Clay reach this moment. 2 days later, Cassius Clay held a press conference, and there he announced something to the world. "I'm not Cassius Clay anymore. That name is a slave name. I'm a Muslim now, and my new name is Muhammad Ali." Malcolm X sat in the back row and smiled. His student, his brother, was now the world's most famous Muslim. But at that time, nobody knew that something was going wrong. A crack was forming between Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad. And that crack would tear. Malcolm X was beginning to see the corruption within the Nation of Islam. Elijah Muhammad, the movement's leader, was having affairs with multiple young women and fathering children. It violated Islamic teachings, and Malcolm began to speak out about it openly. Elijah Muhammad was furious. He told Malcolm to be quiet, but Malcolm didn't stay quiet. In November 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Malcolm X, in a public speech, characterized Kennedy's death as the chickens coming home to roost. This implied that Kennedy's actions toward black people had come back to haunt him. The comment caused a scandal. The media condemned Malcolm, and Elijah Muhammad saw this as an opportunity. He banned Malcolm from speaking for 90 days. But Malcolm knew what was really happening. This was a silencing. Elijah wanted to get rid of Malcolm. In March 1964, Malcolm X announced he was leaving the Nation of Islam. He formed his own organization, Muslim Mosque, Inc. This was a betrayal to the Nation of Islam. And the leadership sent a message to members. Malcolm X is now an enemy. Anyone who speaks with him will be expelled from the movement. Muhammad Ali faced a dilemma. On one side was Malcolm, his mentor, his friend, the man who gave him his name. On the other side was Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. Ali's faith, his community, his identity. The Nation of Islam's leaders approached Ali. Herbert Muhammad, Elijah's son and Ali's manager, was very clear. Malcolm is a traitor. If you talk to him, you're a traitor too. You need to make a choice, Ali. Malcolm or us? Ali was 22 years old, young, impressionable and afraid. The Nation of Islam was his everything. If he lost them, who would he be? I won't talk to Malcolm, Ali said quietly, February 1965. Returning from a trip to Africa, Malcolm X came back to America. He'd spent the year making the pilgrimage to Mecca and meeting with leaders in Africa. He had changed. He no longer believed only in black separatism. He'd seen that true Islam doesn't discriminate by race, and he missed Ali. He wanted to see his brother. Malcolm learned that Ali was staying in Miami. He went to the hotel, hopeful that maybe there was a chance. Maybe Ali would talk to him. When he entered the hotel lobby, he saw Ali. Ali was sitting with several Nation of Islam members. They were talking, laughing. Malcolm hesitated. Then he took a breath and walked toward Ali. "Brother Muhammad," Malcolm said with a smile, using Ali's new name. Ali looked up. He saw Malcolm. For a second, something crossed his face. Maybe happiness, maybe longing. But then he looked at the Nation of Islam members. They were staring at him with hard looks. Ali stood up, and then slowly he turned his back. Literally, he turned away from Malcolm. "Ali," Malcolm said softly, "I just wanted to talk." "Brother, I'm still your friend." Ali said nothing. He just stood there, back turned. Malcolm waited a few seconds. Then he nodded. There were tears in his eyes, but he didn't cry. He just turned and walked out of the lobby. One of the men next to Ali laughed. "Good job, brother. Malcolm's a hypocrite. You ignored him, right?" But Ali said nothing. He just sat down, his hands trembling. That night, when Ali returned to his room, he couldn't sleep. He thought about Malcolm's face, that smile, that soft voice. "Brother, I'm still your friend," Ali told himself. "I'll call him tomorrow. I'll explain. I'll tell him I'm under pressure, but I still love him." But tomorrow never came. February 21, 1965, New York City. Malcolm X was on stage at the Audubon Ballroom, about to give a speech. There were about 400 people in the hall. Shortly after he began his speech, a commotion broke out at the back of the room. 2 men were pretending to fight. Everyone looked there. At that moment, 3 armed men rushed toward the stage, and they fired. Malcolm X was shot 21 times, in his chest, his arms, his legs. He fell on the stage. People screamed. There was chaos. Malcolm's wife, Betty Shabazz, threw herself over her children to protect them. Malcolm X, at 39 years old, died in front of his own people. A few hours later, the news spread around the world. Malcolm X has been killed. Muhammad Ali was training in Miami. Someone gave him the news. Ali stopped. He took off his gloves. He said nothing. He just went to the locker room, sat down, and put his head in his hands. Someone who knew him at the training camp said years later, "That day, Ali cried. After everyone left the room, I heard him crying, and I heard him say something. I was going to call him. I was going to call him tomorrow, but tomorrow was too late." Malcolm X's funeral was held a few days later. Thousands attended. Celebrities, activists, ordinary people. Those who loved Malcolm, who believed in his vision. Muhammad Ali didn't attend the funeral. The Nation of Islam had forbidden it. "If you go there, you're finished," they said. And Ali was afraid. He was still bound to the Nation of Islam's authority. But on the day of the funeral, Ali sat at home. And for the first time, he realized something. He was afraid of doing the right thing, of standing with Malcolm, of speaking the truth. He was doing the exact opposite of what Malcolm had taught him. In the following years, reporters asked Ali questions about Malcolm. Ali always changed the subject. "Malcolm's in the past," he'd say. "I'm looking to the future." But inside Ali carried it. The guilt was heavy. Every night when he went to bed, he'd think about that hotel lobby. He'd think about Malcolm's face. "Brother, I'm still your friend." And Ali would ask himself, why? Why didn't I hug him? Why didn't I talk to him? Why didn't I embrace him and say, "I'm under pressure, but I love you"? In 1975, Elijah Muhammad died. The Nation of Islam changed. Leadership passed to Elijah's son, Wallace Muhammad, and Wallace changed his father's path. He steered the organization towards Sunni Islam. Muhammad Ali gradually moved away from the Nation of Islam. He became a Sunni Muslim, and for the first time, he openly admitted that Malcolm had been right. In 1977, A reporter asked Ali, "What do you think about Malcolm X now?" Ali paused. Then he said quietly, "Malcolm was right. He saw it before I did, and I was too much of a coward to listen to him." But he still wasn't telling the whole story. He still wasn't talking about that hotel lobby. Muhammad Ali was now 54 years old. Parkinson's disease had slowed him down. His speech was difficult. His movement was limited, but his mind was still sharp. A biographer, Thomas Hauser, was writing Ali's life story. He interviewed Ali for hours, and one day, he gathered the courage to ask, "What was your last meeting with Malcolm X like?" Ali was silent for a long time. Whether it was because of Parkinson's or because he was emotional, it wasn't clear. Then he began to speak. Slowly, the words came with difficulty. "He wanted to see me," Ali said. "In Miami, in the hotel lobby. He came, he smiled. He said, 'Brother.'" Ali stopped. His eyes were filling up, and I turned my back. I didn't even look at his face. I could have told him, "Malcolm, I love you." But I was in danger. I was under pressure. But I said nothing. I just turned my back. Hauser saw Ali's shoulders shaking. 9 days later, he died, Ali continued. And I couldn't say goodbye. I couldn't hug him. I couldn't thank him. He gave me my name. He gave me my purpose. And I turned my back on him. Ali shook his head. Tears were streaming down his cheeks. That's the worst thing I ever did in my life. I betrayed Malcolm, and I could never fix it. Hauser wrote about this moment in his book, and for the first time, the world learned about Muhammad Ali's deepest regret. In 2005, Malcolm X's daughters visited Muhammad Ali, Attallah Shabazz, Qubila Shabazz, and Ilyasa Shabazz. Malcolm's 3 daughters. Ali was 63 years old at the time. Parkinson's was very advanced. He could barely speak. The daughters came to Ali's home. When Ali saw them, his eyes lit up. He tried to stand up but struggled. Attallah, the eldest daughter, approached Ali. She held his hand. "Mr. Ali," she said, "my father loved you very much. You were like a brother, a student, a son to him. And we know that in his final days, he was sad that he couldn't talk to you. But he forgave you. He knew you were under pressure." Ali began to cry. Words wouldn't come out, but his eyes said everything. Ilyasa continued, "And we forgive you too, because our father would want you to believe in the power of forgiveness." Ali, with trembling hands, hugged Malcolm's daughters, and there, silently, he let go of the burden he'd carried for years. But everyone knew, Ali never fully forgave himself. June 3rd, 2016, Muhammad Ali died at 74 years old. The world lost a legend. His funeral was held in Louisville, Kentucky. Thousands attended. Presidents, celebrities, athletes, and ordinary people. But at the funeral, one moment was especially shared. One of the speakers was Malcolm X's youngest daughter, Ilyasa Shabazz. She came to the podium and said this: "Muhammad Ali was not a perfect man. He made mistakes. He was afraid. He betrayed. But in the end, he learned. He grew. And he finally understood the most important lesson my father Malcolm X taught him. True strength is not measured by your fists, but by your courage. The courage to do what's right. The courage to admit your mistakes. And the courage to forgive." Ilyasa paused, wiping her tears. "Mr. Ali, my father forgave you. And now I hope you forgive yourself, because you both taught us the same thing. We are not perfect, but we can be brave. We can admit our mistakes, and we can choose love over hate." The thousands of people at the funeral stood up and applauded. The story of Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X is not just the story of 2 famous men. This is the story of all of us. How often do we make wrong choices out of fear? How often do we betray people we love because others pressure us? How often do we say, "I'll apologize tomorrow. I'll fix it tomorrow." But tomorrow never comes. Ali turned his back on Malcolm because he was afraid of losing his community, afraid of losing his identity. And that fear led him to his deepest regret. But Ali also taught us something else. It's never too late to admit your mistakes. It's never too late to ask for forgiveness. And it's never too late to learn, to grow, to change. After Malcolm's death, Ali began to live Malcolm's teachings about courage, about principles, about fighting for truth. When he refused Vietnam, Ali heard Malcolm's voice. Do what's right without fear. When he faced prison, Ali remembered Malcolm's courage. And in the final years of his life, fighting Parkinson's disease, Ali carried Malcolm's forgiving spirit. Today, Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali are remembered together. 2 legends, 2 brothers, separated for a time but forever connected. Near Malcolm X's grave, there's a visitor book. People go there, leave messages, and very often they write, "Malcolm and Ali, now together in heaven." Maybe they are, maybe at the funeral, Ali finally hugged Malcolm and said, "I'm sorry, brother. I let you down." And maybe Malcolm smiled and said, "I already forgave you. Now forgive yourself." If this story moved you, remember, in life, there are moments when you need courage. The courage to stand up for someone you love. The courage to say no to something you know is wrong. And most importantly, the courage to say, "I love you, I support you," even when others tell you to say no. Muhammad Ali taught us that turning your back is easy, but when you turn that back, you carry regret for 50 years. Malcolm X taught us that true courage is doing what's risky, choosing love over fear, and together they taught us, brotherhood is not about being perfect. It's about loving each other despite your mistakes. Tomorrow might be too late. Today, reach out to someone you love. Today, apologize. Today, be brave despite the fear. Because one day, you'll look back too, and the only question will be, when I was afraid, did I still love? Muhammad Ali's answer, once I didn't, and I never forgot it. What will your answer be?